it gives very agnostic energy because he has a shirt that says "Don't die."
I think this is a stupid thing to pursue.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Thoughtful Banter Podcast. I'm your host, Matty, with my co-host, Hussein.
Yes, sir.
This episode is sponsored by our Patreon. We have a new change on our Patreon. We want to make you guys aware of it. We have 2 tiers now that are distinguished by only like one attribute. The first tier is called Thinkers and Doers. And by the way, both our tiers, you can get a free 7-day subscription. So if you're on Patreon and you're actually using it and you're like, dude, this sucks, I ain't paying for it, 7 days free.
Feel free to unsubscribe.
Pretty much. So the first tier, you just get your name on an episode, just to show like, hey, you're one of our supporters. So you can add your name to the growing army of Thoughtful Banter. The second tier is called Within the Fold. And it's called that because in this tier, you will be granted access to like writings of Hussein and I behind the scenes. If you guys don't know, Hussein is a well-renowned writer, thinker, philosopher. He'd be having like big thoughts.
Completely incorrect.
And I'd be having like sporadic thoughts. Like I don't want to use like, can't say that word anymore, but I'd be having like just random bits of like creativity and stuff I want to share with you guys. So yeah, if you guys want to support the podcast, that's the best way to do it.
Yep. Also, one more time, shout out Wahda Clothing. I got my sweatshirt. It arrived in the mail. Here it is.
Yeah, it looks clean.
So hope you guys can read it. It says Harur qalbak min al-kirahiyya, which means free your heart from hatred.
SubhanAllah.
Go to Wahda Co. The link will be in the description. Again, use code thoughtful banter, all one word, for 10% off.
Bro, I wish I brought my shirt today. I got it in the mail last night, and I woke up to I stayed up till 2:00, and I woke up in like such a haze, bro. Like I haven't drank. I drank a cup of water. And what I got in my system right now is just this Monster and your leftover coffee. So, I wish I would have thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, my eating has been really not good for over the past couple of days, and my wife has wanted to kill me and strangle me for it. So there's that. Like yesterday, I don't think I ate a meal until like 4 p.m. and all I had was coffee.
Why, you just working?
So typically in the morning, I don't like to eat. Like I'm just not hungry in the morning. I usually don't get hungry till around like 11 or 12. And we had left the house around 12:31. So basically around the time I was getting hungry, we had to leave to go to an appointment. So it's just the way it ended up working out.
But you don't feel bad doing that, do you?
No, typically I don't feel like crazy gnawing hunger, like my stomach's about to eat itself. Once it reached like 4, it was like I felt the hunger, but it wasn't like crazy. It wasn't like I don't know. Ramadan typically isn't hard for me, but sometimes when you do get really hungry during Ramadan, it wasn't like anything like that.
That's funny because I've recently started like implementing intermittent fasting, and Ramadan is never really like a struggle for me. If anything, like
not the
water.
fasting, not the
yeah,
fasting.
It's more just like being like a better Muslim, like
yeah, literally.
yeah,
That's
it's like concentrating your salat because you're fasting, like that kind of stuff, right? But it's like the fasting and whatnot's easy, but like outside of Ramadan, I'd be struggling with like skipping breakfast, and I was like, you know what? Let me find like habits that make it easier to like eat less food. And I was thinking like shortening your eating window is probably the best way to do that, right? But I've been breaking my fast, and when I break my fast, I just get hungry.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's not necessarily to eat less food. It's just to make my life easier to live. Like if this is just naturally the way I am, like I don't get hungry until a specific time. Let me just not force myself to eat.
But you know what's interesting about that? And we're going on a tangent. We actually have like topics planned. But like what's interesting about that is because of like...
It's not working. Hold on. Continue.
What's not working? Oh. What's interesting about that is that people have habits that like if you look at habits and like weight loss and stuff, right? The unconscious habits people have are huge factors in determining like their weight and whatnot. And like if you look at the habits of people who are just like naturally skinny, they say, oh, and maybe yes, they have fast metabolisms, but all the people who everyone knows who are just like quote unquote naturally skinny, they all have this little habit where like you notice like, oh, they don't eat breakfast, they skipped lunch, they have a dinner, and their dinner's like, oh, they can eat whatever they want, but it's like, yeah, they skipped both meals and they're like working all day and they just like weren't hungry. So it's just funny like how I've always known you as a guy who's been like in good shape, never had like excess body fat on you despite what you think.
Until I got married.
Despite what you think. Never had crazy excess body fat. And like you have that kind of habit. To you, it's like very normal. And for me, the guy who's been struggling with body fat, I'm like, oh, bro, I'm just hungry, bro. It's just funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element. Again, we're not on the topic we're supposed to be on, but this is part of the podcast. You know, the thoughtful and the banter. And this is kind of my issue with like all this like optimization stuff. Some of it, some things need to like should be optimized, like your sleep, for example, right? Like, I don't think anyone operates better on like they're like, oh, I operate better on 5 hours of sleep as opposed to 8. Like, that's shut up. Like, you're not telling the truth. But there is kind of like an aspect in my mind that thinks, I feel like some people's bodies function certain ways, and instead of like trying to correct that, you should just lean into it and try to make your life function around those kind of like ways that your body functions, instead of trying to like optimize it. Because in reality, there's so little we know about like genetic factors on these kind of things like health and stuff. So like there could be so much genetic variation that we just can't capture. And that's, I think again, with certain things, it doesn't really work that way, like sleep, for example.
So I'm wearing the Whoop now. I've been wearing the Whoop for like about 2 months now. You know, it tracks your sleep, and it doesn't just track how much you sleep. It tracks the quality of your sleep and your recovery score by like getting all this data that I don't even understand, right? But it seems to be mostly accurate, at least from what I feel, right? And the Whoop would tell me, like, maybe you got 5.5 hours of sleep, or some nights I get like 6.5 hours of sleep, or some nights like only just flat out 5. But the Whoop would be like, your recovery is excellent despite your sleep because of other lifestyle factors. And I don't know what those factors are, because like I'm not like some kind of athlete who's doing like cold plunge. I'm not doing like cold plunges or anything. I think it's just because maybe I'm someone who operates decently with a little bit of sleep. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. And again, that's kind of what my point is with like all the optimization stuff. Also, it's like at some point, it's like, bro, are you just can you live your life?
Yeah. It's, you know what it is too? The problem with the optimization stuff is, the problem with the optimization stuff isn't that where people are trying to optimize. It's that people are trying to optimize based on what other people do. So for example, we see like LeBron James, a guy who's like in incredible world-class shape, and people are like, oh, what's LeBron doing? And LeBron breaks down his routine, and then people try to implement it. It's like, LeBron's routine is not going to work for me, brother. You know what I'm saying? Or anybody, like these guys who are like trying to sell like programs online to get like shredded and whatnot. Like, that's just what works for them.
I also think it's like this weird obsession with like perfection. And I don't quite have like super solid thoughts about this, because I'm just like spitballing out about this now. But I remember we had a conversation. We were at the gym, and I was like, I think that Bryan Johnson or whatever, the dude who like does the what did he call it?
The blueprint.
The blueprint. I guess he's like meticulously planned. He's like a billionaire or whatever. He's like meticulously planned with scientists, and he has like the best diet, or he's made like the most functional diet, like all these kind of stuff. Optimizes sleep, optimizes the workout routine. And apparently on like a cellular level, he's like 18 years old or something, right? And how old is he actually?
He's like in his 50s, like 55 or something.
Yeah, and he's like, you know, my goal is to create the most like perfect lifestyle, or not even lifestyle, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, lifestyle. Like he wants to like he wants to like revolutionize health.
Yeah, and then I was saying he's goofy because like I think this is a stupid thing to pursue. And Matthew was like, well, you know, it is. I think maybe the intent behind it is goofy, but actually a lot of the research that he's uncovered as a result of like going down this road is actually useful for everyone. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I don't know. It's like this weird kind of, I don't even know if it's Western. Maybe it is Western, but it's like this obsession with perfection, especially like in this world.
I'm about to say it gives very agnostic energy, because even Bryan Johnson, like he has not agnostic, like atheistic, like anti-God, because he has a shirt that says "Don't die."
Yeah,
like his whole brand is "Don't die." And I'm like, Bryan, do you think you don't believe in God? Do you? Like, I can't confirm that, because I haven't heard him say he's an atheist.
Yeah,
but I've seen things like his kid was talking about how he's like divorced from his wife, who he had his children with, and his kid was talking about, I live with my mom. I was active in the church and stuff, and then like my dad helped me out. Like I'm here, and like. It's like stuff like that, and him saying "Don't die." And I'm like, Bryan, do you think that if your cellular age remains young, and you hypothetically never get in any kind of accident, and you never get an illness, that you live forever? Because you're wrong, right? You know, God can snatch up your soul.
Yeah, and it's like
I worry about people like him, because you know?
I don't know. We're supposed to have balance, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're supposed to have balance doing the things, and again, like. Even Alex Hormozy, when he talks about these kind of things, he rubs me the wrong way and kind of triggers me, because he's like, oh, well, work-life balance is the thing that keeps people poor, or there doesn't need to be any kind of balance in your life. And I'm just like, Alex, shut up. He's like, if you're doing something you enjoy, just keep doing it. I'm like, I mean, I understand the sentiment, which is like, if you don't need, like, if you can work 9 hours straight, 10 hours straight, and you don't need a break from that, and you can do that for 7 days a week or whatever. Okay, perhaps there is no, if you don't have any other obligations, perhaps there is no reason for you to have strike a balance with that. But my thing is, like, there are a lot of other things that can come into your life that become priorities over you working 10 hours, for example, which is like something that he doesn't seem to, because even like if you hear him talking about relationships, family, like he's very much like, oh, if it's not like beneficial, cut it. And, you know, we have like the religious perspective, which kind of prevents us from doing those type of things. Maybe not so much with friends, but it's definitely with like family. So it's just interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Only time will tell the truth of like these people, you know, like their philosophies and stuff. Like a guy like Bryan Johnson, it reminds me of a bit, and I'm not saying this, like, I don't wish any harm upon him, but there's this bit that Andrew Schultz has, and he's talking about, and I'm going to butcher it, but he's talking about going to the airport, and he sees like at the bookstore at the airport, this guy's reading this book that is written by this atheist, something called like There's No God or something. And the guy, Andrew Schultz, looks at the guy, and in the bit he's saying like, and I'm looking at him like, departing or returning, homie. He's like, I need to know, because you buy this book, you gotta buy a couple Bibles to balance this out. And he's talking about how there's this famous atheist, and what is he famous for? He gives speeches around the world saying that God isn't real. And what happens in the future? How does he die? Throat cancer. It's like, that's how like God is saying, shh. You know what I'm saying? And like,
yeah,
if you don't believe in God, obviously everything we're saying to you sounds ridiculous, and like you can have your opinion. And I'm not wishing that happens to Bryan Johnson, but I just think it's funny to see, like, you know, you put yourself in this position where like, because you put yourself in this position where like you're metaphorically against another metaphor, almost like what happens to you then makes people think about which one's the truth. Yeah. Like if someone sees a guy like let's say Bryan Johnson literally never dies, he's the first immortal human, people think, God must be like not real. That's what they're gonna think, you know. And then they go, or if they see him die, not even from an accident, like something like crippling lung cancer that sprouts out of nowhere, for instance, you're like,
yeah, you know. I guess I'm also not completely convinced. Because like a whole bunch of like all these people are like their main thing is like happiness, like what makes you feel good. Like Alex is like that. He's like, well, if working makes you feel good, he's like, I love to work. That's what he says. Like, so if I have to work 12 hours, something I love doing, I'm not gonna like balance that out. But in reality, he does balance it, because even he says like, I might work for 3 months. And Mr. B says this straight. He like, I work until I can't work anymore, and then I stop. And then for however long I need, I stop work. I don't do any work. That, first of all, that is balance. But anyways, before I even get into that, I'm not necessarily sure I'm convinced that these people are deriving 100, like they are operating at 100% happiness anyways. And I'm also not convinced that if they introduced other, you know, meaningful relationships into their life, that their life would not improve. So, but you know, that's like a theoretical question. Who knows?
That's interesting. Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
That was a great. That was fire, guys. We're moving on to another section of the podcast. First time we're doing this, we're going to be reading Reddit posts. We're going to be reading Muslim Reddit posts. This is experimental. You guys, please let us know if you enjoy this.
Maybe put the Reddit post on the screen. I don't know.
No, I will. Yeah.
Okay.
I also want to just give a little bit of disclaimer. Reddit is not reality. Reddit is a dark place where people feel like they are not. But Reddit is a dark place where people feel like they're anonymous. And because of the nature of that kind of platform, people post things that are oftentimes wild. People post stories claiming that they're true, and they're not true. Or people post a story and it sounds crazy.
Lying on that, Joe.
Lying, or, you know, at the end of the day, hey, it's just one side of the story. We don't know the other side of the story. You know, some of these stories may be wild. We're not trying to like spread like fitna or anything, like bringing them up, because like some people might think like, oh, these stories making Muslims look bad, you know. But like, I think it's interesting to read these stories at the very least, because we can't really have this conversation with someone in person. Like the stories you're going to read, like we're not going to ask a married couple what their marriage issues are. Like that would be kind of inappropriate. No one really want to put their face on that. So this kind of gives us a way to like see like, you know, the inner workings of people in a sense, but take it with a grain of salt. So we got a story here. I got 2 stories that are kind of crazy. This one is, my husband is so cheap, I hate him for it. So bear with me. And I'm going to have both stories linked below. This is from MuslimMarriage Reddit, subreddit. MulslimReddit, longtime lurker, first-time poster, and a throwaway for obvious reasons. My husband and I have been married for 3 years, engaged for 1. I am currently off work, 5 months pregnant, and have no plans of returning to work because of the job I worked was extremely demanding, toxic, long hours, and stressful, etc., etc. Now that I have 2 on the way, alhamdulillah, I've decided to focus on my family and my home. Since leaving my job, my husband's cheapness has gone through the roof. Bear in mind he earns a very good salary. Enough to save, give charity, live comfortably, travel, so I don't understand why he is so cheap all the time. This used to be a small issue during the beginning of our marriage and even engagement, but now he will literally scrutinize a bill to the last penny and avoids any place that doesn't offer a discount or a deal. When I worked, I was like, whatever, I have my own money so I can splurge when he doesn't want to. Now that I depend on him financially, I have had enough of crippling coupons and putting timers on the lights after 7 p.m. He started to keep tabs on my chores, saying I spray too much disinfectant or I use too much dish soap. He comes in and starts mixing it with water. Not only that, he keeps mentioning how I'm doing nothing all day and shows me job opportunities when I clearly mention that I do not want to go back to work. I recently got a hole in my old sweater and was like, I'm going to the mall to buy a new one. When I came back, he sewed the hole and said he was upset that I bought a new one and I should stop wasting money, and that he is the only earner, so he's the only person that values every penny. I mean, I can't just buy a sweater anyway. He has no financial debts, and I grew up with a very generous dad, so I started to hate him for it, and honestly, everything he does turns me off. I find myself making excuses every time he calls me to bed. With pregnancy, this has made me upset. I used to be so excited to go baby shopping with him. He told me to wait until we travel in a few months when we go back. So for when we go back to our home country to do the shopping, because the clothes there are cheaper. And yes, I tried speaking to him about it, but he just goes on a rant about how important money is and how hard he works. And I don't understand because I don't work. And no one mentioned counseling, please. I doubt he would do that unless it's free. TLDR, after leaving my job and relying on my husband financially, his extreme penny pinching habits have been suffocating, creating resentment. I did a lot of talking, so
that was a lot. So
yeah.
On our topic of optimization, this is like optimizing for saving. You know, this, and it's just a miserable existence. You know, like it doesn't sound like this guy is having fun. It definitely doesn't sound like his wife is having fun. But I will say, like, I have a couple questions about the whole thing. One is like, how did you not have these kind of like conversations about money prior to being married, especially if you were engaged for whatever that means, especially if you were engaged for a year before? You've been married for 3, engaged for 1, so you've been together for 4 years, right? How was this not like, was he not working at that time? Maybe he was, I don't know.
Well, she even says here she noticed it in the engagement. It was kind of a problem a little bit. Yeah. So she's been aware.
Yeah, there's that. And then 2, I don't think he doesn't have any debts or anything. Like there, you know.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask.
Like,
how does she know?
Yeah,
how does she know? Because it doesn't sound like their finances are connected.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when she's saying I had my own money, I could splurge. I'm not saying like that means necessarily that their finances aren't connected, but I will say it's pretty common for oftentimes for men to not keep women in the loop about money. Yeah, a lot of guys have a lot of debt. A lot of credit card debt, and they won't tell wifey because wifey was like, oh, well, I go on a trip, and the guy's like, yeah, I could take you on a trip. He don't got the money. No, but she doesn't know because she doesn't care unless she's not the one swiping. She's not looking at which card. She don't know which card's a Visa or a credit card. He's just swiping away.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
She doesn't really care because she's trusting his word that he has. She's assuming that he has the money.
Yeah, I mean, like that's his job, right? I'm not, like she should trust him.
And I understand that to a certain extent because like I feel like as a married dude, we've all kind of been there, right? Yeah, you said that you brought that up as an example, and it's like it's a very real example for a lot of dudes.
I've done that plenty of times where I didn't have money exactly on me. Wifey wanted to go out, took out the credit card.
Yeah, I know this money's gonna come later. Like I'll just pay it off. Like
you want to go on a trip? Cool.
Yeah, and then like you maybe get a little irresponsible. Instead of paying it off, you do something else, and then like these things start building up, and then you're like, oh crap, I don't want to tell her that like I don't have money, especially as a result of this thing that like I really wanted to do for her, but
yeah, because you don't want to make it feel like it's her fault, and then also you kind of feel like you've been irresponsible.
Yeah, that's
because like man, I let this debt that started off like $500 accumulate to $2, and now it's like $10,000 of credit card debt.
So it becomes like a point of pride, and then like failure as well.
Yeah, and men especially when pride gets brought up with like failure, it's very hard to get them to open up about something, and money's a huge problem, like a huge kind of thing. Everyone knows it. Like every guy feels like, man, it's on my shoulders, and it is on a man's shoulders. Unless a woman is like the primary earner, she's not going to relate to that. You know what I'm saying? So like he has that kind of stress, I'm sure, and it sounds like he's never been a father before. He's got 2 kids coming along. It's possible that this is very stressful for him, and she has no idea how much money they actually have. It might not be as much as she thinks. Like she says he earns a good salary. What's a good salary to you?
That's another thing I was going to say. What is a good salary? It's a good salary $85K, or is it a good salary $150K? Because those are like very different earning levels.
Very different, especially where you live and like lifestyle and stuff. Yeah. And again, like if one person, if both couples, if whoever's bringing the money isn't showing how where all the money's actually going, it's very easy for the other person who's not earning to really think that, oh, there's enough money. There's money around because I could go shopping, I can go eating and stuff. But like if you actually budget every single item in your itinerary, until you do that, you don't know how much money is coming in. Like you might think, oh yeah, we're coming like $6,000 a month. Well, like rent is $3,000 right there. You've been going to H&M a lot. And you think you're not going out a lot, but we spent like $400 on eating out. All this add up. You know what I'm saying? Then I got my monthly credit card bills and then the monthly car bills, and it's just eating us up.
I will say, though, to her point, timers on the lights after 7.
It's crazy. There's no way that's making an impact. Yeah, there's no way. Like, no, that's crazy.
Like that sewing a hole. I mean, I don't know how big the hole was. Maybe it was a little hole. But like if it was like assuming it was like a substantial hole, I think sewing it is a bit much.
Are you okay? Are you okay, Alicia? Okay.
Yeah. So like again, it sounds like the dude hasn't been completely honest with her.
No, I'm thinking about it, bro. I'm thinking about it, and sewing a hole is crazy. Like I'm actually like fair. Like there's no way I can know. But if I were to guess, I would say I'm 90% sure. He's like in a lot of debt. Yeah. Or he's in a bad spot.
Or he's not in as good a spot as she thinks he is.
Sewing, like I can't even, like a man sewing a hole, brother, that's crazy. Like he must be struggling. Yeah. I think she might be not as where as she thinks she is. He doesn't want to tell her because she's pregnant.
And it also sounds like they're, like you said, like their finances are separate. So I'm not sure if she has a glimpse into like his savings account or his checking account, right?
Yeah, he probably wouldn't want to tell her because she's pregnant. It sounds like with twins.
Yeah, she's expecting 2. So,
I mean, congratulations. But it's like, especially if this is a Muslim man from any country besides America, I already know that guy's mad prideful and like, I can't tell her. I have to handle it all by myself because I know how our people are. Yeah, I know. Stop lying to me. I know how we are. We have some toxic traits.
Coupons is also crazy.
Coupons is crazy. I mean, it sounds like, too, it's like, if you're actually in this, like, financial position here, at that, like, turning the lights off after 7, you're not saving enough money. If it's that bad, you need to be working on the weekends. That's what it is. Some of the comments here agree with us.
Also, I'd say, like, showing your pregnant wife job opportunity is wild.
Yes.
Like that. Like that's just not something you should be doing. You know?
Showing your wife in general, like, job opportunities when she says, like, she doesn't want to work.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to. It's not like she has a responsibility to work.
Yeah. It's kind of like.
And it's kind of.
Beta. No.
Yeah, it's kind of like red flaggy.
Yeah.
So again, this is like all these things are all kind of signaling to me that she doesn't actually know the financial situation because he hasn't been completely honest with her. And so she thinks, he has a good salary, but every month he's making like 2.5K payments on his credit card or something. Like, we have no idea. And it sounds like she doesn't know either because
she seems out the loop. There's no way I can think of that. Like, I'm very confident that, like, what's likely happening is that she's seeing things running, but she's not seeing behind the scenes, so she thinks there's enough money. And, like, I don't agree with him telling his wife to work. Like, that's where he just got beta. But I also sympathize with the guy to an extent. Like, man, 2 kids coming along. If he has debt, he's trying to fix things. He's just trying to save money.
Again, we also don't know, like, how big their house is.
Yeah.
How expensive their rent is.
She didn't say anything.
Perhaps they're living in a place that when they were on dual income, they were comfortably affording. But now that they're on a single income, it's like that budget tighten. And again, if he's not being honest with her about that, then
and it's also,
what is she supposed to think?
What is she supposed to think? I think it brings up a very interesting thing about, like, money in a relationship, because I don't think, like, what's funny is this: he's not wrong. I mean, he's wrong about making her work, like the job thing, but that's about it. He's wrong
about that. He's also wrong about
the lights.
Well,
Bear with me. He's not wrong about the lights if she was on the same page. Like, if 2 penny pinchers are together, what's wrong? They're both happy. Yeah. What's wrong is a perception of, like, ease.
I also think you don't understand because you're not this and that is not helpful, and just it sounds like it's just creating resentment between them.
Yeah, I think
so. There also needs to be, like, a more effective communication of, like, hey. And this goes all the way back to not telling her the actual source of the problem, which is either I have a lot of debt or, we're not in as comfortable position as I thought we would be. So this is how I'm feeling. And then all of this stuff could be like, if that's just said on the back end, on the front end, none of this stuff really exists. So that's, like, the biggest thing that's happening. And I think that is completely on him.
Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, so much of the burden is on the man. So, like, it is what it is. Like, he's got to, like, if I were the brother, if he's listening, you might think culture is not acceptable, but I don't know, bro. It sounds like y'all live in the West or, like, America or UK. You need to get an Excel sheet out, my brother, and break it down and show, like, listen, babe, this is how much we have to work with. Mm-hmm. Your expensive taste in clothing ain't cutting it, for instance. Like, and it's like he hasn't said his side of the story.
Yeah.
People who, everyone, like, financial habits are very subconscious. So, like, if someone's used to going out, they don't think they spend a lot of money. But if they've been doing that, they could be spending easy, like, $1,000 a month on, like, nonsense, on clothes and food, on experiences. Like, it's like, that's a lot of money, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, so, like, while it is easy to, like, empathize because we probably on, like, a smaller scale we've been in similar situations, right?
We're the men, and, like, we're like, hey, bro, relax.
The point still stands that he needs to just put it all out there, and then whatever conversations happen from there, we can kind of determine who's being reasonable or who's being not. Right now, he's being unreasonable because assuming he's not being honest, he's being unreasonable. If it actually is the case that it is as she says, she's still being he's even more being unreasonable. So either way, it's like a lose-lose scenario for him.
Wait, why is he unreasonable in the second scenario?
If it is true that he has a very good salary that can support them easily.
If everything she's saying is true. Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch it.
If he has no debt,
I agree.
It's even more unreasonable.
It's even more unreasonable. Yeah. And if that's so, like, assuming everything she's saying is true, it just sounds like he might be OCD and, like, really anxious about having kids.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, just
He's one of those people who's thinking like, oh my God, 2 kids, that's like $250,000.
But she says, again, assuming everything she's saying is true, she says these habits were there even beginning, but she was working, so it wasn't an issue.
So she just venting. She pregnant, she in a mood, and she venting. It sounds like
what?
Because I'm like, you living with this man.
No, yeah.
It's been 4 years. That's right. Probably, married for 3, engaged with 1.
That's probably her mistake. That's probably her mistake.
That's not a mistake. That's a choice, Dan.
I mean, yeah.
Married for 3 years, and you're complaining about this now.
I mean, a lot of people don't complain about these things until they actually become something worth complaining about. If you're working, and then you're not working.
Finances is an interesting subject now. What do you think about women working? You know what I'm saying?
What would I have against women working?
I don't know, man. But it's just like, a lot of brothers, we always hear Islamically, like we were just saying earlier, the woman doesn't have to work. It's a man's responsibility to provide, which, that's true. But there's also the but. And it's like we live in this economic time now where it's like things are so
dual
strange.
Incomes are pretty much a must unless you're a very high earner.
Like, listen, bro. Yeah, if you're like, and it's actually like it makes a lot of sense. Like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you can have 2 people with bad incomes and together make a lot of money.
Yeah,
you're 2 people making $50,000 each a year, median household income of $100,000. That's enough to live in decent places comfortably.
A household income of $100,000.
Sorry, household income of $100,000. That's enough to live like comfortably if you don't have crazy debt.
Yeah.
But the husband making like $70,000 by himself, wife not making nothing, that might not be enough.
Yeah, you're living a little tighter.
A
lot tighter, actually. At least in our area. Maybe in other areas of
middle of America, for sure, you're balling out of control. Your mortgage like $1,200, but
DMV $70K after tax and all that. You're making like what, $4,500 a month?
And not just here, bro. Like in London,
you're making $4,500 a month.
Canada,
if you're renting anywhere decent, you're spending at least $1,800. Most likely 2,000, even for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, right?
Yeah, that's rough.
That's almost half of your salary.
That's rough.
That's almost half of your net take home.
And brothers aren't getting married. Like young brothers who want to get married are like stressing about money. Like, bro, I don't make enough money. So it's like, if, like, I'm just saying, like, there's this thing like, you gotta take care of the woman, and like that's true, but like at the same time, marriage is also so important. And if you can't make marriage work out without both people working, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Like, I think dual income is probably necessary.
Yeah, I also think a lot of this thinking is like based in rights and responsibilities are like the ideal. And that's not necessarily always the case. Actually, a lot of the times, rights are, rather than being the ideal, are like the red lines or the guardrails for the relationship. Like, at the very least, this relationship can't get any worse than this. And that tends to be what things that are halal are, for the most part.
Good luck trying to convince the majority of Muslims that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to convince them.
But there's a reason there's a halal and then there's a mustahab, right? There's like, these are distinctions that are made, right? The mustahab is what should be done. The halal is what can be done.
SubhanAllah.
Halal is what can be done. But it doesn't mean in every situation what's halal is what should be done. Right? A lot of times you hear that like, oh, well, it's halal, bro. That doesn't mean you should do it, brother.
You're saying it doesn't mean I shouldn't?
And we understand that there are contexts. We have contexts in which things are halal become haram. In Ramadan, it's halal to eat during the day on any other day of the year. In Ramadan, it is haram to eat during the day.
Context.
So now this is a specific religious context, but it doesn't. It seems logical to me that there could also be other circumstances or contexts and situation in which things that are okay are not okay, in which things that are not okay maybe are less not okay. Like even if I'm starving, I can eat a pig. And there's only a pig that's there, I can eat a pig. So there are these like contextual things that we kind of understand already, but for some reason when we apply them to things like this, it doesn't work out. applying them to this situation in marriage in general, I think people, instead of focusing on what rights are, right, and what responsibilities are at like the base level, it should be what as a family brings us closer to reaching our goal of getting closer to God, because that's ultimately what this whole like marriage experiment is. Right? It's half our deed, and I've had my theory about why it's half our deen, and I've gone over it on the podcast a little bit, but it's half our deen, and then the rest of it is us trying to figure out how us, first as two individuals, and then as you add more children, if you have children or whatever, if you add more children, how us as a family unit maintain that cohesion on that path towards God. And if we start focusing more on like what optimizes for that, that's what we should be optimizing for. That's like one of the few places where I fully encourage optimization of, like optimization in, because ideally optimization of the spiritual is going to give you a balance. Again, this is ideal. So if there is a wife who makes $36,000 a year, and there is a husband who makes $65,000, $70,000 a year, and they've worked out a situation in which the wife is contributing some things to the house, or maybe she's doing all the saving for the family, and so the husband has all the expenses and the wife is doing all the saving. So all $36,000 of that money per year is just going into the bank account for them to share in the beginning. Again, this is not like shout out, she doesn't have to do any of that. She doesn't have to do any of that. Shout out, she doesn't have to cook for you. Shout out, she doesn't have to raise your kids.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's the point you're making, right?
But exactly, this is the point I'm making. We understand for those things, it's pretty intuitively like that's a garbage relationship. Like, why would you be with a woman who you have to pay to take care of her own child?
Yeah, and we hear that, like, I think we don't connect the dots. Like you hear like on like, you know, people in situations where people are defending Islam, let's say against an atheist. An atheist is like reading out like, in Muslim countries, for example, it's common for a man to do X, Y, Z. And then like some, let's say a hijabi is like, you know, like we have this hadith saying like the woman can charge for feeding the child. Isn't that feminist?
Yeah.
You know, and everyone's kind of confused because on one hand, Muslims are like, dude, no one does that. And the atheist is like, how come y'all ain't doing it? Because there's still like things about like Muslim women getting like stoned and abused and all this crazy, terrible stuff. And it's kind of like, we just got to like slow down and use our brains a little bit. Like, okay, God wants us to have serenity in our household. How do we reach that goal?
Yeah. I mean, one of the goals of like, this is like actually shout out, like you can look at, let's say it's Sunday stuff. He mentions like one of the duties for both partners is to bring husnul ma'ashir, which is like the beauty or the goodness of the home environment, right? So like if you're doing things detrimental to that, even if they're halal, it might possibly be not okay for you because it harms that.